Hello, loved ones. This is Matt Stevens, and I hope that you're doing super fantastic because I certainly am. And, loved ones, I get on here and I talk a lot about consciousness as fundamental. And I know that's not my own thing. Well, it is. It is my thing. But anyway, a lot of people, such as Donald Hoffman and others, have described that so more eloquently than I am able to. But I also do have my own spin on the thing. But when we say consciousness is fundamental, we do mean that mind is really the only thing that's real. Meaning that there is the universal consciousness, the big mind, the mind of the all, the mind of God, whatever you want to call it. And then it, in its infinite imagination, in its infinite mind, once it became self-aware, which really was not a point in time, but that's getting when we start getting off into other things. So sometimes, yes, I do talk in a linear way when I say that once the infinite mind became aware of itself, when it had the aha moment, the I am moment. Some people could say that was the Big Bang. Okay, that's fine. We can do that. If you really want to stay that entrenched in materialism, fine. But the mind is really the only thing that exists. And mind doesn't really exist in any place. It doesn't really exist anywhere. That is all just part of the illusion, which is the imagination. And some people are like, well, what would be the purpose of all of that? If this is really just, then there really is nothing except that mind, that universal consciousness. Then what's the point in all of this? To which, it could be, there could be lots of reasons. The main reason, I believe, is for discovery, is for exploration and discovery. It's because when it has become aware of itself, it's this realization. It's rather mind-blowing. It's mind-blowing to us in this 3D physical realm. It's got to be even more so in a realm of just mind. It's got to be mind-blowing to realize, whoa, I exist. I'm thinking, I'm having thoughts, I'm having emotions, all of this. But yet, what am I? Where am I? Who am I? That's that infinite mind. And then it is imagining. Why wouldn't you? It's got to, when you have that kind of realization, you got to believe that your mind would start racing. It's like, whoa, wow. But yet, in when we were talking about an infinite mind with an infinite imagination, it's mind racing. All of these thoughts, all of these creations popping up in its imagination, in its infinite imagination. Here we are. Here's everything. Everything that could possibly exist does. And we could call it God's mind if you want, and the immortal dream. But it is God's mind, the mind of the all, the immortal dream of infinite awareness. All of those things are accurate. So all creation is in mind. And then but mind doesn't exist anywhere. That's one of the big things that we have such a hard time wrapping our minds around with when we're thinking in this 3D in very linear way. We're bogged down with time. We're bogged down with physicality. We're bogged down with material in this life. But where we come from, our higher self, and I know this, we have this, we all have a connection to that. And it is a connection through your third eye, your pineal gland. Your pineal gland in the dead center of your brain. It's one of the only things you have one of, actually. In your brain, you have very, two hemispheres, and you pretty much have two of everything, except your pineal gland and in your heart. It's rather, and I know, don't get smart and be like, I know you got a couple of other organs that are not, you only have one of, okay, fine. I'm not getting that deep into it. Okay. Okay, loved ones. Hey, by the way, since we're on the subject, because we're not, please hit the like button. I would so appreciate it if you would do that. But physical reality only feels real because we're in it, right? Because it's in our current perception. Like currently, I am in this vibratory range. I am in this vibratory field, right? And that's why I can perceive this. And that's why everything in it feels real. And we know that because there are a lot of out of body experiencers who will tell you that when they go out of body and they're in that state, in that realm, that everything there seems just as real as this does here. In other words, when they're in the astral or wherever whatever you want to call it, when they're in that state and they're exploring or whatever they're doing, everything seems just as real there as this does here. And that in itself is a little bit mind-blowing to us, right? Because when we imagine the astral, we imagine some very etheric and dreamy place with, whatever. I mean, what comes to mind when you think of that, right? You know what comes to mind when you think of the astral realm. Okay? Kind of like there's those DMT experiments going on right now where they're putting people on like an IV drip of DMT. And they're keeping them in that state of awareness. They're keeping them in that state for longer. But it's more of a sustained, controlled dose rather than just a wham, big hit in the head and you're blast off into the DMT land, right? But they're keeping and these experiments, what they're attempting to do is to map the terrain in that place, right? And it's pretty amazing stuff, really, because you can have people who are in separate parts of the world who have never interacted. You can have people who have, even separated by time. Someone who went on their little DMT journey back in whatever time, and maybe they were in Asia. And then you've got someone else decades later in North America. The thing is, they come back and they report the same things. They report meeting the same beings there in some cases, but they report it's freakishly the same. So now they've got this experiment where they are keeping people in that state, which what a lot of people, the pineal gland, as I mentioned, it produces melatonin, but it also produces DMT that occurs naturally in your body. Of course, not at that much of a dose, of course, but whatever. But that DMT, when people go into that state, it can be seen as taking the veil off. Not necessarily transporting them to another realm, because we know that everything is right here. Everything is right here. It's all a matter of perception. But I'm not getting off into that. What my point was getting at that is when people are in that state and they are reporting all of this psychedelic stuff, the thing is, whether it's the person in Asia from 3 decades ago or it's the person in North America from now, they're reporting the exact same thing, but they're also reporting that all of that seems just as real there as this does here. Which the point of that is everything is just perception. So whatever current state you are in at that time is what is going to seem real to you. Right? And as I've said many times, the vibratory range is what you're perceiving. So if you're perceiving anything from here to here, anything in between there, you can perceive that is your physical reality. But if you were in the range up here and anybody here can't perceive that, that doesn't mean it's not there. But anybody that is in that range, well, they can perceive that. And that seems just as real to them as this does to us. So it's all about perception, right? And it's all about your vibratory range of what rate you are vibrating at that time. So when I getting back to the infinite mind of God and the immortal dream, right? It's all happening in the imagination of the Creator. It's all happening right there. And yeah, that's a good way of putting it. Like the consciousness had that big aha moment and was probably mind blown. It's like, whoa, I do exist. What is all this? And then began imagining at a very rapid rate. And it's pretty cool. I don't have to take my glasses off like I used to because I got the no glare. I know there's still a little bit of glare, but yeah, come on, right? So anyway, yes, imagination is just creation in the mind. But it's all just but that's all creation is anyway. And then physicality, current range of vibratory perception. Whatever your current range is what your physicality is. But if you go to a different range, then that will be your physicality. That will be what is real in that moment. Because as the OBEers tell us, out-of-body experiencers, they say, yeah, when I'm in that realm, that seems just as real as this does. So yes, it is all imagination. And I know that some people, that can cause people to become nihilistic and think, well, damn, if this is just all if this is all just happening in the dream, well then why should I care? Well, I mean, first of all, you got nothing better to do anyway, so you may as well. But I mean, it's not wrong, but seriously, use this to explore. I mean, we do have a purpose here. We do. And I do believe that this is expansion of consciousness, meaning that universal consciousness is expanding itself, growing through you. So I got to believe that in this particular realm, even though it is it's very difficult, but it should be. That's the only way we really grow, when we are tested. But the really interesting thing about this realm is, as difficult as it may be, it is conducive to creating reality out of nothing. I mean, quantum mechanics shows us that is possible with the observer effect and things like that. And then where we and I get off into simulation theory a lot. And then people are like, well, where does that fit in? Well, okay, if we are in a computer simulation right now, it's a big if. Okay, fine. It doesn't matter. If we are, that too is in the infinite imagination of the infinite mind of the Creator. So it's fine. So if we are in a computer simulation, okay, because that too is inside of that. See, some people think that simulation theorists are very doom and gloomish because it's like, well, if you exist in a computer, when somebody shuts a computer off, you're gone. No. We absolutely have soul. We absolutely are soul, having a human experience. But I'm going to get into that in another one. That's something totally else. But yes, this consciousness is fundamental. The mind of God just said, plow, holy moly, here we are. Here I am. What am I doing? And began imagining, aka creating. So anyway, loved ones, I'm right about the 15-minute mark. I try to keep them around there, right? But I do appreciate it if you have not subscribe to the channel, I would appreciate it if you would do that. And I do appreciate it when you hit the like button and things like that. I would love to get your comments on this because we can go in so many directions from here. This is really just where it begins. This is not it's an open-ended question is what this amounts to. This little rant I just had, I guess. But yes, if you would please hit the like button, I would so appreciate it, and subscribe to the channel if you have not yet done so. Also, you can find me on X at Matt Stevens, MSA. And I guess that's all I got for now, loved ones. That's what I got. Yep. So I do love you. I truly do. And I'll be back directly.